Welcome to this special bonus episode of the Passive House podcast. I'm Zach Semke, Director of Passive House Accelerator, and we're pleased to be sharing a series of bonus episodes recorded at the International Passive House Conference 2023 in Wiesbaden, Germany. These interviews were made possible by support from Icon Windows and Doors, Inotech Windows and Doors, Intelligent Membranes, Minutair, and Proclima. Please enjoy this bonus episode.
Well, Ifrah Ariff,
Yeah.
Just tell us a little bit to start with who you are and what you're doing, how you came to be here.
So I am a architecture student. I'm finishing my master's in architecture right now, but I am here on behalf of Bere Architects, along with Justin Bear, who runs the practice.
Yeah.
And I'm here because I have been working on some energy monitoring for some of the projects that we have very recently completed. And in particular, I presented the energy performance analysis for a Passive House Plus dwelling, where we've had data for the past 2 years.
Right. So is this like an internship at the moment?
Yeah, well, I mean, it started as an internship in 2020. And
Right.
then I've kind of whenever I have the time, because I am also a full-time student, whenever I have the time, I work on this also.
Right.
Yeah.
And are you postgrad or are you still...
Masters.
You're doing masters?
Just finishing kind of qualifying.
Is that professional masters? So you're going to go on to be a registered architect?
Hopefully.
Yeah, I'm sure you will. So I came in, caught the flow diagrams you had that showed all the energy flows around a house.
Yeah.
It seemed to me that one of the big things that made a big difference wasn't so much the energy that was being generated, but the control system that was in place. Is that what you're finding?
Yeah, actually, well, it's the control system and the particular energy plan that the house is subscribed to.
Right.
And to be completely honest with you, I'm still struggling to wrap my head around how it all works because it's so automated. And
Right.
I really need to spend a good month full-time digging my heels deep into it to really understand it. But yes, in essence, that's what we're finding. It's not so much to do with the increased loads because of the car charging per se, but more to do with how those loads are managed.
Yeah. So was this a passive house?
Passive House Plus.
Right. And it's just one house that you're looking
Yes,
at, or is it
yes.
arranged them? And so you got a Passive House Plus, it's got its own generation, and it had an electric car as well?
Yes, but the electric car was only introduced in the last 6 months of the study.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and then you mentioned there's some other terminology in there, things that I hadn't heard of. Were that the names of the energy plans?
The Tesla Octopus
the
Energy
Octopus.
Plan.
Yeah.
Yes, that's the name of the energy plan. I probably should have made it an acronym or something for the presentation.
Right. Yeah. But there was another one as well. Was it a different plan, or was it just the Octopus?
No, it was just that one plan that I was referring to.
Right.
The alternative would have just been a very ordinary tariff, which would have been a simple matter of buying energy from the grid and then not getting any money on the energy sold to the grid.
So what is the Octopus plan?
So the way it works, as far as I'm aware, based on what I've found on the website and stuff, is that it's a collaboration between Tesla, which has the batteries, which is the manufacturer of the battery in the house, and then Octopus, which is a kind of energy provider UK-wide. And what they're trying to do is, I think they're trying to obviously decarbonize the grid in their own way.
Yeah.
And they kind of say on their website that their energy sourcing is 100% renewable. And I think it's on the basis of they're producing renewable energy. They might supply non-renewable, but it's a kind of offset.
Yeah.
The point being that this plan is eligible. People who have a Tesla Powerwall battery and a solar panel system are eligible to have this plan. And what it allows them to do is to optimize these energy exchanges between the house and the grid. So on a kind of, straightforward basis, what you might expect is that, in the afternoon when there's a lot of sunshine, you have a surplus of energy being sold to the grid Just and that's after it having charged the battery in the house.
Yeah.
That's not necessarily what happens in this arrangement, because what might happen is that, okay, there's a surplus of energy being sold to the grid, but then it might actually, rather than give it to the house, rather than sell it to the grid, it might try and take more of it to the battery or to the house to be used in a kind of manner that's maybe more financially sensible. And then what it might do is at night, it might try and buy energy when the energy price is really low.
Yeah.
Now, the details of it are still a bit fuzzy for us because we've unfortunately not been able to access the 5-minute interval data for the second year that we studied. So that's something that we're really trying to get onto for now. Hopefully.
So is the purpose of your study to see how well those plans are working for people?
Sort of, yeah. To be honest, it's kind of that and plus a bunch of other things, such as like the effect of the electric car, the effect of, the solar panels and all these other environmental factors. Our approach is basically, well, we have all this data. Let's just look at what's there and why things are happening the way they are.
Yeah. It seems that control system and the complexity of all those, the generation, the usage, not just in a single house, but in a network, that seems to be something that's emerging because where in the past it's been just in one direction and about efficiency.
Yes.
Now we're getting people with PV on the roof, we're getting electric cars, more electrification.
Yeah.
So is that what people like Octopus are responding to, that sort of increased complexity?
I think so. I think what they're almost encouraging us to think about is not just this kind of complexity as you've mentioned, but also complexity in the form of networks of homes, which can then act in a symbiosis with each other and supply energy to each other in an almost like a co-op system. I think someone had mentioned this in our Q&A session. So I think that's what they're sort of kind of slowly steering us towards, which is a very interesting prospect, of course.
Well, it seems that there's potential for a cluster of homes to be more sustainable and more resilient than a single house trying to have enough storage for its own use without sharing it.
Precisely. I think this energy plan is trying to do exactly that, where they're trying. They call it, I think, a community grid of theirs, which is where the energy is bought and sold to other consumers, similar to Brambles.
And I guess a big challenge for that is figuring out the money, right? Figuring the finance and who's generating, who's using, and then who ends up paying for what.
Yeah. To be honest with you, I'm not a financial expert or anything.
Neither am I.
I don't have the details. I know as far as what the bills for Brambles have been, and they've obviously been phenomenal. If they didn't have a car, the Tesla Octopus would owe them £115.
Yeah, because you mentioned 90% savings?
Yes. That's 90% savings in the energy consumption. Compared to if Brambles was built to an average kind of notion of
Okay, so that's the benefit of being a passive house.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And then, so that's the starting point, is having a really efficient house, but then recognising that you do have to supply some energy. If you can optimise where that energy is coming from, and if you're generating some as well, then potentially you're a net earner.
Yes, exactly.
But then if you add an electric vehicle into the mix...
Yeah, it becomes a bit trickier, but I think this is our next kind of steps as to how we create that nexus between, yes, we want to be, net earners, but also we want electrification of transport. And how do you make that a profitable enterprise? Or maybe not even profitable for an individual scale, but maybe on a community scale.
Yeah.
Right?
So any big surprises from you so far from research? What's jumped out?
To be honest, I think it's the cost. I think it's the fact that the house could have been in credit.
Right.
That was a big shocker because, of course, we're now in this crazy energy crisis. Everybody's crying about energy bills, and understandably so. But you then have Brambles, and it's almost audacious that that's what's happening.
Right, and that ability is simply, once you've got the passive house, the ability to potentially be positive is purely from controls, right?
Well, not purely from controls, but largely from controls.
Largely from controls of some sort of smart system that's figuring out when it's best to be either storing or exporting,
buying
or importing.
Selling. Yeah, exactly.
So it becomes an IT issue.
IT finance.
Right.
Both.
And pricing.
Yeah, of course.
Pricing.
Yeah,
and ideally, I guess, pricing signals that are informing the decisions, and it's all happening magically behind the scenes?
Yeah.
Or is there any... Is it because there's no user input in this system?
No, not really. I mean, it kind of is an automatic system that responds to the energy demands.
Right.
Of course, that's the user input, if you want to call it.
Yeah, sure. And deciding to go on the right plan in the first place.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I think for me as the researcher, I think the next step would be to kind of try and contact Tesla Octopus and try and understand exactly how the inner workings of this are, because it has great potential, I feel.
And is that the next part of the next step for you? Where do you see? Well, what's the next step for your research? But then also, where do you see the implications of this going in the next few years?
Okay, so next steps of my research, number one, to contact Tesla Octopus, see what's going on, and also to really go into the, like I mentioned to you, the 5-minute intervals for the second year that we studied. We haven't really delved into it just yet. So that's the next step. We really want to look at how a day in winter, summer, spring, autumn differs, and how those energy flows are, interacting with each other on the scale of a day or of a week.
Yeah.
So I think that's a really good next step. And then also, of course, taking subsequent data from after May 2022. I mean, it's almost a year since then.
Yeah,
that's the third year of data that we're going to sit down and analyze.
Yeah.
And so that's the next step of the research, but on a kind of wider implication. I mean, the hope, obviously, the ideal aspiration would be for this Passive House Plus to be applied not only to new builds and not only to detached dwellings, but to, mass housing, retrofits, and what have you. But of course, we really need to kind of market that in a kind of political economic way.
Yep.
And I think that's where the energy bills, the appeal of that really comes into handy. And you say to, say, a politician, this house is in credit. The energy supplier owes them money.
Yeah.
It's a winner in that sense, right?
Yeah, and I guess it's a winner financially for the homeowner, but there's that resilience piece as well of if you have enough of that happening, you've effectively or dramatically decreased their reliance on foreign fuel and wherever else you're getting energy from. Yeah, awesome. Hey, well, thank you. And the other thing I've got to say thank you, it's kind of a complex picture, but I really like the flow diagrams.
Oh, thank you.
That's a good way of visualising what's going on, because in all those different flows, it's also it's not the same all the time. It's always constantly changing where those energy flows are going.
Yeah. It's a bit of a hassle to try and make those diagrams because I make them by hand.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's like I really wish I had a piece of software.
You need a dashboard,
Yeah, I really want a dashboard, but that's beyond my IT skills, and we've tried to get that to happen. But
well, there's a good challenge for someone.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully. But yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.